What's up, everybody? It's Nate from I Quit My Band, back in the zone by myself, rocking and rolling. It's a Saturday night, and I decided to do this instead of hang out with all of the friends that I have. Just kidding. This was my only option for plans tonight. But in all seriousness, thanks for watching the show and supporting the channel. We've been doing these kind of little zone asides Evan and I have apart from the podcast, and another thought I had over the weekend was about supergroups. So I wanted to make a video about supergroups. I wanted to talk about supergroups mainly because I saw a very interesting one get announced the other day. Whenever there's like an announcement of a supergroup, it's always like a very big deal, and people get very excited about what the project is going to be depending on who the members are and who's collaborating. But I saw the most interesting one, which really made me scratch my head. It was Mike Patton and the Avett Brothers. So Mike Patton and the Avett Brothers are apparently teaming up for a project called like Patton Avett or Avett Patton, something like that. And they're going to be releasing a record. And I listened to the single, and it was really odd because I genuinely, after hearing it, I didn't really know what I was expecting. Like Mike Patton, incredible metal rock, just avant-garde vocalist, and then you have the Avett Brothers, who are kind of like this, this indie rock band from like mid-2000s era. Just those two vibes just do not mash up in my head at all. And like, there was a part of me that was thinking like, am I going to listen to this and the Avett Brothers are going to be playing like math rock and it's going to be really sick, and this whole time that they were just actually like huge like Faith No More, Dillinger fans? Or was it going to be that Mike Patton is like this kind of, this country boy at heart, this guy who like loves adult contemporary indie rock? And the single was kind of the latter. It was more of an Avett Brothers song than it was a Mike Patton song, and that's okay. I don't really care what Avett Patton sounds like. It's just a thing that exists that I probably won't check out, and that's fine. But it got me thinking about supergroups just in general as like a thing, and how many we've seen over the years, and if they're actually good or not. If they're actually real bands. Are these actually good ideas? Should we keep listening to them? Supergroups have existed for a really long time. It's not like they're a new idea or anything. We had, there was bands like the Traveling Wilburys or Cream, or even like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or Damn Yankees, one of the best to ever do it. Like sometimes when I listen to a supergroup, it makes me feel like it's kind of like the listening music equivalent of like watching a Marvel movie. It's like, all my favorite characters have teamed up for this amazing thing. And it's like, am I just liking it because the guys who I like from other bands are in it, or am I actually paying attention to the music? Like, I feel like Martin Scorsese needs to weigh in on this and be like, they're not actually bands. It's an amusement park ride. Like, is that kind of what they are? Am I right about that? Do other people think that? Or are there some supergroups out there that exist that like people actually consider like their favorite bands? I mean, there's some supergroup projects out there that I have been really into, that I don't really necessarily return to all that often because of like the musical output of a typical supergroup or side project is always like 1 to 3 records. They don't usually have a long lifespan. There was actually a comment that we got on a video whenever Josh Freese was kicked out of the Foo Fighters. We talked about that on the show, and I remember someone writing in the comment section like, Josh Freese went back to A Perfect Circle, a real band. And that always really tickled me because I was like, A Perfect Circle are kind of this ever-evolving side project / supergroup that's only put out a handful of records over the years and kind of like come and go. Whereas Foo Fighters have been around since the 90s and have put out however many records and have been one of the most beloved bands of the past, 30 years. Like, I don't really think that calling A Perfect Circle a real band over the Foo Fighters is a like very sound argument. But I guess some people feel that way. I'm not in any way a Perfect Circle hater or a Foo Fighters lover. I just thought that was a really interesting thing to say about a band that like isn't even a real band. But do other people consider them a real band? That's the thing I guess I'm trying to figure out on this little segment here. I was originally going to do this video as a tier list, but it got a little bit too messy and confusing. So I'm just going to talk at you for a while, if that's okay. I basically want to go through like 15 supergroups, just kind of like Michael Scott roast style, you know? Let's just talk about them real quick. Let's decide if they were like real, legit, or a novelty that really wasn't anything. I guess I just kind of want to look at them like through the lens of like, is this a real band? Did they live up to the expectation of what people thought they were going to be? Was it a marketing ploy? Was it a money grab? Who knows? Let's just talk about it. The first one I have on here is Velvet Revolver. Velvet Revolver was like, when I was like in 4th grade, dude, you couldn't get any better than Velvet Revolver. Just like 5 guys on the most amount of drugs and just me as a 10-year-old just being like, I want to be like that. I want to be on cocaine, hanging out in strip clubs when I'm older. Definitely not having a future. But, I mean, one of the coolest bands ever existed. It was the members of Guns N' Roses. Plus, I remember Dave Kushner on rhythm guitar, and then, like, the crown jewel that made it a supergroup was Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots on lead vocals. Putting out stuff that did not sound like Guns N' Roses or Stone Temple Pilots. It was kind of like post-grunge mix, metal-ish, radio rock, very fun stuff. I mean, Slither is still a banger, but Velvet Revolver only lasted 2 records, and that second record, I remember just, even as a 4th grader who still idolized Slash and Scott Weiland, I was disappointed with it. I remember it just wasn't that good. The first record was good. There's some fun songs off of that record, but I think listening to it as an adult is probably like not nearly as fun as listening to it as a kid who's like just picking up guitar for the first time. So Velvet Revolver, while they had some good songs and like I have a lot of fond memories of that band, listening to that band as a kid, I'm going to say that they were more of a novelty than anything. Moving on to another one, kind of from the same era as Audioslave. Audioslave was the members of Rage Against the Machine minus Zach De La Rocha and plus Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, which is, again, like one of the best ideas you could ever hear, you know, in theory. And I'm not saying Audioslave is a bad band. They're actually a pretty good band. It was, again, it kind of hit me the same way as a kid. Like, I loved this. I ate everything that they did up, but like when you kind of dive into the core of what this band was, they didn't have that many great songs. I think their first record was the strongest. Then they had 2 other ones, and they had literally had a song called Be Yourself on it, which is like, all right, Chris Cornell, you were the lyricist for Soundgarden, and we got Be Yourself. The dudes from Rage Against the Machine. We're talking about Rage Against the Machine and Soundgarden. And then we get a song called Be Yourself where Chris Cornell is just like, to be yourself is all that you can do. It's like, all right. I don't think that Audioslave was like a real band. This was probably more of a novelty than anything, kind of more of a marketing ploy. But yeah, this is really fun. I mean, if you've never heard Show Me How to Live or Cochise or Gasoline or I Am a Highway, I Am the Highway, those are great songs. I mean, that whole first album, they just really didn't need to exist beyond the first album. And that's kind of what brings me to this next project, supergroup / band, Them Crooked Vultures. Them Crooked Vultures was Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, and Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters and Nirvana, but more in a Nirvana mode because he was playing drums. I'm not the biggest Foo Fighters fan, but Dave Grohl on drums, sign me up. I mean, the dude is a fucking just absolute beast. And then having him and Josh Homme team up again after a long break from doing anything musical together after Songs for the Deaf. And then having just John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin like be your bassist. One of the coolest lineups maybe of all time. And the thing I really respected about Them Crooked Vultures is they had just one record. They just one and done it, and like That record, if you listen to it now, it still holds up. At least if you're a Queens of the Stone Age fan, because Dave Grohl, there's not a lot of like Foo Fighters influence on it, and there's really not a lot of like Led Zeppelin influence on it either. I mean, I don't think John Paul Jones is going to be the one to like kind of put the Led Zeppelin stamp on a band like this. It's really more of a Queens of the Stone Age inspired project, with Josh Homme kind of flexing more of his like ZZ Top influence all over this record with some really nasty and dirty blues riffs. Yeah, this project is a novelty, but the record was so good and it still kind of holds up, and I would love to hear another one, but I just kind of really respect the fact that this was kind of like went in being a side project, remained a side project, and kind of like mic dropped after doing something pretty like memorable and legendary and something that people still want however many years later. So I think this is still a really great project. Moving on to another one from like the 2010 days was Chicken Foot. I don't know if anyone remembers Chicken Foot, but it was Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers on drums. It was Joe Satriani on lead guitar, and then Michael Anthony on bass and Sammy Hagar on lead vocals, both from Van Halen. Yeah, this wasn't good. I mean, this was just a classic dad rock answer to Velvet Revolver at the time, I think. I think if like your dad was a little bit too freaked out by what was going on with Velvet Revolver, he could always turn to Chicken Foot for some good old like grilling music, you know. And Sammy Hagar is just one of the biggest like peddlers of product of all time. I mean, I literally ate at a Sammy Hagar themed restaurant at the Las Vegas airport a couple weeks ago. And yeah, the food wasn't good, but Sammy Hagar's face was plastered all over the walls, which made the dining experience just incredible. So yeah, I would say Chicken Foot, which honestly sounds like it could be the name of a barbecue sauce, was more of a marketing ploy than anything. They did have 2 records, which is fun. I'm not going to say that I know everything about Chicken Foot, but the song that I know is called Oh Yeah, which is what Sammy Hagar says after he puts a little bit of his own signature barbecue sauce on some chicken wings. That's marketing. Okay, so moving on to something that's a little bit more serious and that people are definitely going to remember more than Chicken Foot is A Perfect Circle. I was never a huge A Perfect Circle fan or anything. I was never really into Tool. There was a wall there of like Maynard being the lead vocalist, knowing that I wasn't the biggest Tool fan, that like made me not want to listen to A Perfect Circle that badly. But the other members of this band I've always had pretty great respect for. You had Billy Howardell on lead guitar. I think James Iha is like now in the band. I can't remember if he was like one of the original members. But Troy from Queens of the Stone Age was in this band. Paz from this band and the Pixies and other like various projects. Geordie White from Marilyn Manson was in this band. They're just kind of this like revolving door of musicians that have been in A Perfect Circle. And they've always been good. I think this has always been a Billy Howardell project more than like a Maynard project. And while I was never the biggest fan of this band, the songs that I do know are pretty fucking sick. Like Judith is great. 3 Libras is great. I always really liked Weak and Powerless. Magdalena is one that I think I remember being really great. I just really don't like this like very serious, dark, ominous version of radio rock. I really didn't like their return record that they had a couple years ago called Eat the Elephant. Just that album name mixed with the album cover just really made my stomach turn. That's really all I can remember about that record, was that it just grossed me out. I'm going to stand by what I said, that I don't think that A Perfect Circle is really a real band, but I also don't feel like this is just like a marketing ploy either. I guess A Perfect Circle does feel like more of a creative outlet to me than just some cash grab. Next, I'm going to move on to Alter Bridge. Alter Bridge was the members of Creed plus Miles Kennedy. I don't even really know if, maybe this was just like whenever Scott Stapp left or was kicked out of Creed, they just like got a new lead singer. Because I don't know where Miles Kennedy is really from. I remember him from the ending of the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, where he's pulled up on stage to replace Mark Wahlberg in the band Steel Dragon without anybody knowing because he was dressed like him. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm describing that well. Go watch the movie. Alter Bridge is a fine band, I guess. They sound like Creed. They sound like Creed with like just a way better lead singer. I mean, that's all I can really say about it. I think this band is not really a novelty. I feel like they were just kind of like they replaced Creed for a little bit. It was like the guys from Creed still wanted to do Creed, but they didn't have Scott Stapp, and they got someone else who was not as funny to watch and wasn't like the butt of the joke anymore. Like that's why Alter Bridge is kind of like laid low a little bit, because there's no like punchline. Miles Kennedy is just a good singer. Like this is like those guys could have just been a good band, but Scott Stapp is what made them be like, who the fuck are these guys? Just like a Pearl Jam ripoff. They could have had Miles Kennedy at the beginning, but they didn't. And I guess we just kind of, with Alter Bridge, we get to see a glimpse of them just kind of living a normal band life. You know what I mean? So I'm going to say this is, I really don't see them as a novelty. I think I'm not really an Alter Bridge like fan or anything, but I see them more as like a real band, not really a side project or a super group, more of just like, the guys from Creed teaming up with a better lead singer. Next, I'm going to move on to the Dead Weather. The Dead Weather I was really into when they first kind of came out because their first record was pretty interesting. So this was Jack White on drums, Alison Mosshart from The Kills on lead vocals, Jack Lawrence, who was in the Raconteurs and the Greenhorns on bass, and then Dean Fertitta from Queens of the Stone Age on guitar and keyboard. They had a really interesting, dark, groovy, like 2000s radio rock sound that like I really was into at the time. I think this band had really good intentions starting off and actually was making some pretty decent music, but as they kept going, it started to feel more like a cash grab than anything. Their second album, Sea of Cowards, isn't bad, but then their third record, Dodge and Burn, which like came like years after, felt like more of a cash grab to me because the riffs were just not as interesting as they were on Whorehound or Sea of Cowards. It felt very like hodgepodge together, like, oh, we just need to make something. And Jack White's not really like the type of guy to do that. I mean, he's Jack White. Something about that third record just seemed like it was past the point of being like relevant or even something that people cared about still. I kind of feel the exact same way about the Raconteurs. I mean, the Raconteurs was another Jack White project, 3 records, has some really great songs. Steady As She Goes, Consolers of the Lonely, Salute Your Solution. I mainly know this band from like their songs being in 2000s era romantic comedies and like Madden, like they were that band. Yeah, I think they made some pretty great music together. I don't hate the Raconteurs by any means. I don't really remember the comeback record that they made, but I remember people being really excited about it, and I was kind of excited about it too. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, are they a real band? I think more so than some of the other ones on here, because not a lot of people know Brendan Benson or Jack Lawrence or whoever the other guy is, right? I think, this band probably had more well-intentioned starting off than some other ones. Next, we're going to move on to Crosses, which is a duo side project of Chino Marino from Deftones and the guitarist Sean Lopez from the band Far. I really like this project, and they kind of have had a very like classic supergroup side project trajectory. I remember they released like 3 EPs back in the day and then consolidated all of those songs into being one record. And then that was kind of it for them. If you haven't heard Crosses before, they have kind of like this very gothic witch house vibe to them. It's like rock music, but kind of like the rock music that you would hear in like Zion in the Matrix. Like every time I hear some of their songs, I feel like I'm at that party where everyone's all dirty and like kind of fucking each other. Like that's what I think of when I listen to this band. And I kind of love that. That's kind of a fun genre to be into. They came back, I think last year or 2 years ago, with a follow-up record that was just Chino and Sean. They had other collaborators before with this project, but it was just Chino and Sean now. And yeah, it's good. It's a fun little project. I don't really think that this is like a novelty either. I feel like the music that they're making is more of a creative outlet from what both of those guys do on a much more like well-known level. Like it doesn't really sound like Deftones. I'm not really familiar with Far outside of they covered Genuine's Pony in a rock version. I knew them from that. And I feel like this is just a way for Chino and Sean to kind of stretch their legs with a totally different sound. I really like this project. I still like this project. I would suggest listening to this if you haven't heard it yet. Next, I'm going to move on to Better Lovers. So, Better Lovers is a band that just kind of came out of the woodwork within the past couple of years. This is the former members of Every Time I Die plus Greg Puciato from Dillinger Escape Plan, which is like just such a monstrous fucking group of people. And the sound that they make is pretty much exactly what you think. It's Greg screaming his head off, and it's the guys from Every Time I Die pretty much trying to keep up with Greg. That's what it sounds like. It sounds a little bit disjointed, but in a good way. Like there's more melody than anything that Dillinger's ever done, and there's more like drama and evilness than anything that Every Time I Die has ever done. I really like this project. I really like the EP that they put out a couple years ago. Their full-length album, Highly Irresponsible, which came out in 2024, was also pretty good. But yeah, this project feels like sort of a spite project to me than anything. I don't know if everyone else feels that way, but I just don't know how many. I just don't know the legs that this project has on it. Like, is this band just kind of destined to end whenever the guys from Every Time I Die and Keith Buckley like inevitably make up? Because that's probably going to happen, right? You know, Keith Buckley can't keep doing Many Eyes. I think Many Eyes kind of lost the custody battle of fans in the Every Time I Die divorce. I feel like this band just might fizzle out just based off of like the popularity of Every Time I Die, and I don't know why. I just feel like they're going to kind of reconcile, and then we won't see much of Better Lovers anymore. And Better Lovers is going to be kind of a catalyst for why they get back together. This is just me just talking out of my ass and trying to predict the future. I really have no idea what I'm talking about. But Better Lovers is making some pretty fucking good metal math rock music right now. So I would go check it out if you haven't yet. The next one I put on here is boygenius. Boygenius is another more recent supergroup, if you will, of Jillian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus. So this is kind of like a folk indie side project of those three artists. I really liked the first EP that they put out. I thought it was really great, some really great songwriting, and this is kind of like at the height of like Phoebe Bridgers' popularity as well. But the album that they put out, which I think was called The Album, I felt like was more of like a cash grab than anything. I felt like the music that they made on the EP was very honest, and that's why it was good. And then the album that they put out felt like it was like manufactured in like Pitchfork's lab of bands and things that they want to give like best new music to. I'm a fan of all three of those artists. I mean, Phoebe is great. Lucy's great. Julian Baker's not my favorite out of the three, but I think that's just because her music is like more emotional, and I shut off to that naturally just because I'm like, I don't want to cry today, you know? Don't make me cry. I think there's a reason we're not hearing much from this band anymore, and why they're probably not going to release anything far into the future. It's because it was just like, it was supposed to be a one-off thing that kind of was stretched out into something that was more, and it didn't have to be. Getting down to the bottom of the barrel here, we have Many Eyes, which I just talked about, which, yeah, this feels like just crawling, just Keith Buckley just needing to have something. But yeah, that first record just did not grab me whatsoever. It just felt, I don't know. Those guys need each other, man. I don't know how else to say it. And I'm not even the biggest Every Time I Die fan. I just think that band like needs to come back to life in some way. Here's one you probably don't remember. This was a band called Anti-Mask. This was Cedric and Omar from the Mars Volta / At the Drive-In, and Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then Flea kind of left that project, and another guy came in to replace Flea, and they got Travis Barker as a drummer from Blink-182. Yeah, this is a weird one that, like, I think just fell under a lot of people's radar. But I remember when this was announced, and I was, like, very excited about it. And they were playing shows, too. And I'm a big Omar Cedric guy, so I'm always, like, very excited for, like, what they're doing. And while this was probably not, like, a marketing ploy or anything, it feels like it was probably more of a creative endeavor than anything. This project wasn't great. It felt like At the Drive-In, but a little bit more raw and a little bit more punk than anything. And yeah, it just didn't have much like blood or spine to it. This project probably just didn't need to happen, but it did have a very interesting lineup of folks in it. I want to shout out another one here in the back half, Atoms for Peace. This was another one that featured Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and also Tom York from Radiohead as the lead guitarist / vocalist. Yeah, Flea just collabing with some really interesting people, getting his name in there, dude, getting the reps in. Yeah, I don't know much about this project. I think they were a one and done type of deal, but I still feel like I see their name come up a lot in the discussion of supergroups. I remember listening to that record. It's very much just Radiohead. If you like Radiohead, you'll probably like Atoms for Peace. It felt like maybe just, a folder that Tom York had on his computer of just ideas for the King of Limbs, and that never made it to that record, and he just wanted to put it out on some different name. So if you like Radiohead, check out Atoms for Peace. You might not know that Flea was involved. I'm not sure if they're still planning on making stuff, but I still remember that project being announced and being like, huh. And then finally, we have probably the best supergroup of all time, which consisted of Sebastian Bach from Skid Row on lead vocals, Scott Ian from Anthrax on guitar, Evan Seinfeld on bass from the band Biohazard, Ted Nugent on guitar, on lead guitar, and then John Bonham's son, Jason Bonham, on drums. I mean, I don't know if you could get a better lineup of musicians to be in a band together. This project was actually so explosive and unique and legendary that they made a whole TV show about it. It aired on VH1 Classic. It was called Supergroup, but the band themselves, they were called Damocracy. And yeah, I think that this was not a marketing ploy. I think everyone's kind of itching for more Damocracy. They never released one song or one album, but their legend kind of looms over the heads of all of these supergroups that I've just named. I don't think we'll ever see a lineup as amazing and as honest as that project. So what do you think? Do you think that all these bands that I've just named are like legit and they're real bands and these are deserving of our ears? And did they exceed your expectations, or did it seem like just a cash grab to you when you listened to it? Are you waiting for them to put out more music? Are you hoping that they stop making music? Just let me know in the comments and tell me any supergroups I missed, because I know I've missed a ton here. I could have done a list of like 100, but I left it in just the ones that are kind of in my head and thinking about right now. Let me know who your favorites are if you want. Let's talk about it in the comments. Let's just shoot the shit. Don't be afraid to call me an idiot. That happens a lot, and I'm fine with it. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for podcast clips and comedy skits. Follow our Patreon page, $5 a month to become a quitter to get bonus content. We're doing bonus content weekly now. You can get an I Quit My Band shirt in the description as well. Just support the show, Thanks for watching. This is I Quit My Band. My name's Nate. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.